So let me just, great. All right, we're at the top of the hour. So let us just get started. We still have a couple of people joining, but they'll flow in as we progress. So first of all, thank you very much, everybody, for joining today's webinar. Really appreciate you freeing up some time today to spend some quality time with us. Without any further ado, let's just start by quickly introducing the speakers of today. So my name is Sunil Dutt. I take care of all the partnerships and the channel sales here in the EMEA region for DevRev. Been with DevRev now for almost a year and a half, and I'm joined here with my dear friend and esteemed colleague, Satya. Maybe, Satya, you can introduce yourself as well.
Thank you, Sunil. First of all, thank you everyone for joining us and giving us the time. And like Sunil mentioned, I'm Satya, one of the product experts here with DevRev, and I've been with DevRev for close to a year, and excited to meet you all today.
Thanks a lot, Satya. So today we're going to tell you all about how to purposely and purposeful apply AI in an organization. And I know that AI is probably the most popular topic that we're hearing about within IT. I was actually in Dubai a couple of weeks ago for the GITEX event, and if I would have gotten $1 for every time I heard AI, I would have walked out as a millionaire, right? So this is a super hot topic. So we want to talk to you today about a couple of things. And first of all, we also want to talk to you about the why of DevRev. So we're going to start off with an introduction of the company, and then we also want to focus more on the how. I think we're kind of at this moment in time where everybody understands the what and the why of AI, but it's really the how that determines the outcomes and the outputs. So a little bit about DevRev. So first of all, why should you believe anything that we have to tell to you today, right? I mean, a bit of credibility is due. So a quick introduction of DevRev here. Our founders, you can see them on the left of the screen, are Dheeraj Pandey and Manoj Agarwal. And I personally had the pleasure of working with our founders before because they're actually quite experienced founders. They previously founded a company called Nutanix. If you've never heard before of Nutanix, it was in a completely different space. You know, this was in during the cloud boom. It was providing a distributed system as a cloud architecture. This company was actually the biggest technology IPO back in 2016. And if you look at Nutanix today, it's valued at about $20 billion, right? So this was a really successful ride. But what made that company truly special is something that never happened before in the technology industry. The company actually got to a net promoter score of 90 plus points, 90. And just to put it into perspective, if you've never heard of the net promoter score before, it's actually a bandwidth of minus 100 to a plus 100. And getting to a 90 is really, really exceptional. Just to put it into perspective, if you look at a company that we all love, let's look at a company like Apple, for instance. So Apple is within the 70 to 80 NPS range, right? And that is a company that everybody heavily promotes based on their experience. So getting to a 90 plus net promoter score, and then also, by the way, if you now look at the company for the past 10, almost 11 consecutive years, it's been hovering between 90 and 93 consistently. So we got to a point where we got to an understanding of what it means to build and scale a company and also maintain really high customer satisfaction, also high employee satisfaction, and also extreme operational efficiencies. And that was the birthplace of the DevRev platform, because at the end of the day, we said to each other, hey, if we were able to achieve this, then surely other organizations should be able to achieve the exact same thing if you just know which methodologies you need to apply. So we go a little bit fast forward. We got the largest historic funding ever in Silicon Valley. We got $100 million raised, which immediately made us a unicorn company. And if you look at our customers today, these are ranging from really small organizations like startups, for instance, all the way up to the largest companies in the world, right? For instance, if you look at one of the largest AI companies in the world, which is a very well-renowned chip maker. I cannot mention the logo here, but you probably know which one this is also a company that's using DevRev internally. So if you look at our investors, and I think the main one to point out is Kochla Ventures. If you haven't heard of Mr. Kochla before, and if you are in IT for a longer time, you probably know this company called Sun Microsystems, which was founded by this gentleman. Kochla was actually also one of the first investors in a company called OpenAI that we all nowadays know from ChatGPT. And what's really interesting is, as Kochla also invested in DevRev in the early days, we actually got together with the folks of OpenAI and started to develop the very first GPTs and the very first large language models. And that's where our journey actually started in becoming an AI native platform. So now, even going faster forward, if you look at DevRev today, we have global presence. We're heading towards, well, almost 750 employees worldwide. We have 8 global offices, and we are in the process of also opening number 9 and number 10. And I believe, Satya, number 9 is going to be in London, where you are based.
Absolutely. Like Sunil mentioned, even I joined starting of this year, but I think and one of the main reasons that I quit my 9-year journey with Freshworks and joined DevRev is the fear of missing out of an AI, right? Uh, that's one of the main things, and you will definitely see it in the course of the talk on how AI could help your companies. Looking forward, Sunil. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Satya. So one of the key learnings that we also had in our previous company was also that security and compliance should never be an afterthought, right? This should be embedded in core, in kernel of your technology. So we took this to heart, and we have almost all the relevant security and compliance certifications also in place, regardless of if it's GDPR or HIPAA or even a very specific security regulations like NIST. Our technology can comply to those as well. So let's just dive in. What is the biggest use case for AI in the enterprise specifically? And based on our experience, it comes down to a very, very simple thing, and that is collaboration. And this sounds very simple and easy, but it's really hard to do. Because I'm not only talking about collaboration in terms of collaborating within people, within departments or teams, I'm also talking about collaborating with your supply chain and collaborating with your technology stack that you're using as well. And if you get this right, it will automatically result in driving operational efficiencies across your organization, which will also result in employee experience that is going up, but also the customer experience that will go up. So although this sounds really simple to do, it is actually hard. And it's hard because of one thing only. And this is because of a phenomena that we call information asymmetry. Information asymmetry basically means that you have different teams or departments within your company, and they all have partial views of very important things like your products and services, or your customers, or your processes that are bringing those two together. So why is this happening, or why has this happened? So this is actually what we call SaaS 1.0, right? And we've probably been part of this journey as well. We come from a world where we were used to storing bits and pieces of information on very local devices. Many people actually had a large database with a lot of sensitive information, valuable information, crown jewels, if you can actually call them, on their laptops. And eventually, when SaaS actually emerged, we had this bright idea of, hey, how about we build purposely tailored databases and provide them to various departments and teams so people can actually do their work and store bits and pieces of information related to their work in those specific databases, which later became applications. So, Satya, like myself, if you're more in sales, I would probably save a lot of information in a CRM, right? And I would use that as a specific database. And, your previous background, Satya, if you're dealing with people that are on a support desk, for instance, in a support function, they would probably store most of their information in a ticketing tool, right?
Yeah, I think the traditional way of working was there for the last couple of years, right? Where whatever systems that helped that individual persona, the companies went with it. And like you clearly mentioned, Sunil, this caused a big information asymmetry, right?
Yeah.
People not just getting all the relevant data that they would need. When they want to bring all of this information together, absolutely not possible. So that
Yeah.
I think, yeah, that's the main thing that we would solve.
Yeah, and don't get us wrong, right? I mean, this solved a lot of problems, right? I mean, we were getting environments that were had high availability, that were infinitely scalable, that were secure. There was a huge cost aspect associated to it in terms of savings. So it actually, this whole process of SaaS 1.0 actually helped us progress a lot. But unfortunately, the side effect was that all this information that you have about your customers, your processes, your people is now tucked away in all these various applications spread across various departments. So typically what happens is if you need to make an important decision, how do you objectively get all that information out of all these silos to be able to make that decision, right? It's very, very hard to do. So these disconnected systems not only result in a fragmented experience internally, but this also reflects back to your customer experience as well. And if you look at, if you need to make these decisions, the funny part is that you already have all the information that you need to be able to make these decisions, right? It's just scattered. And I was actually reading up on this report that was released by McKinsey a couple of weeks ago, Satya. And I wanted to show this snippet because it directly speaks about information asymmetry and the direct effect it has on any organization. And specifically, this part really touched me because it said that knowledge workers are spending on average 25% of their time trying to find the information that they need before they can actually start to do their work. And as a result, which is even more mind-boggling, is that once they get that information, by emailing colleagues or sending Slack messages or whatever they do to get that data,
Yeah.
often that data is either outdated or incomplete. So that has a direct result in the output of your work as well, right? So there's a lot of operational inefficiencies going on in organizations, and that is directly being caused by this information asymmetry. So, imagine this, right? What does that typically look like? And this is a bit of an exaggerated example, but I just had to show you this because this was so funny as I came across this on LinkedIn. Imagine any knowledge worker or anybody in your team that, it's Monday morning, you're super jazzed up, you want to make a dent in the universe, you want to make a difference, you're heading towards your job, and you open up your laptop or your system, and the first thing that you're confronted with is this nice red dot, and it has a magic number in it, right? It can be anywhere between 25 or maybe even 225, but you have a lot of tasks that are waiting for you. And these might be emails. And then you open up an email, and in that email, you see this blue link, and you need to click the link, and it brings you to another application. And then you need to read a whole bunch of stuff and then also comment on it or take actions on it or reach out to people, et cetera, et cetera. And at the end of the day, you think to yourself, wait a minute, I got up, I wanted to make a dent in the universe. But at the end of the day, what I've been doing is actually I've been just, going through tasks, and I've been pushing information from one database to the other database just to make sure that that number in that red dot just goes down, right? And that's your day, right? And this is exactly what is happening, right? And this is why when I was reading this, it really touched me because yes, you get a message in Slack, it has a link to Confluence, you need to prep a meeting in Zoom, you take your notes in Notion, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So our purpose here as DevRev is how can we rethink this? How can we allow people to become more effective in their work without losing time on very mundane tasks and repetitive tasks as well? So our purpose is to bring it back to something that we call team intelligence. As we just mentioned, as a direct result of the whole SaaS 1.0 sprawl, at the end of the day, your biggest enemies are departments that you've created organically within your organization, because now all that information is compartmentalized, right, within those departments. And the second part is, how do you then discover all the knowledge that you already have within your company? Like I mentioned, you already know everything there's to know about your customers, your products, your services. But how do you get all that information out? And as a very important design ethos, and this is something that we often overlook, is that the customer is actually part of your team. This is one group of people that is providing so much input on your products and services that you just have to take into account in your decision-making process. What we often see is that products and services are developed based off of the company vision, which not always necessarily corresponds with your customer needs. But how do you figure out what your customer wants if all that information is tucked away in one tool? And then lastly, Satya, obviously we're talking about AI today, right? So if you want to drive more operational efficiencies and you want to drive more productivity, it doesn't automatically mean that you need to start adding human capital, right? We are now in a day and age where we can simply introduce conversational agents as part of your team.
An AI teammate, maybe. Yeah.
Well, exactly, right? Exactly. So what changed? What is the big paradigm shift that we're going through today? So Satya, in my past, and I'm talking about, maybe more than 25 years ago, I actually started as a developer, right? I was learning the language of the machine. So I was learning Pascal, Borland, C++, the old stuff back in the day. But this was fact of life, right? We had to learn the language of the machine.
Yeah.
And the big shift today is that now the machine or the computer has actually learned our language, right? We can actually now start to interact with machines or with the computer in simple natural language. It can be in English, Dutch, German, whatever language you prefer, right?
And I've been hearing this Sunil a lot, and which I really like. Um, the hardest programming language is English now.
Well, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the by effect of this is that all of a sudden, almost everybody can become a developer as long as you can simply articulate exactly what you're looking for as an end result, right? So if this is the case, then why is not everybody massively adopting AI all over the place? So we started to double click on that, right? And what we actually found is that although everybody is really enthusiastic about AI and the capabilities, what it can do, many of the organizations and people that got their toes wet with AI were actually a little bit, dissatisfied in the result, right? It was not delivering on its promise. So we started to investigate why. And what we found is that oftentimes AI is being offered as a separate application. Let me explain what I mean with this. So often you have to buy an additional license, and in exchange for that license, you get a piece of code. That code you need to integrate in your existing technology stack, and then presto, you should have AI goodness. The downside is, unfortunately, AI does not work like that, right? You cannot, just to put it into, compare it with, you cannot take a jet engine of a plane and then bolt it on top of a train, hoping that the train will go faster, right? Because the first thing that will give up is the underlying infrastructure. It's not purposely built for that speed. So we're seeing the exact same thing in the world of AI, right? You cannot retrofit AI into an existing technology stack. So what we see happening today is that people are bolting on AI onto something pre-existing, which means that you're spending more money, you're getting more tools in-house. You have to build all those integrations because all those AI agents within those technology stacks are still not talking to each other, which results in more time spent. So what we want to make sure of and what we want to kind of achieve is that we don't get into a situation where organizations all of a sudden are managing anywhere between 5 or maybe even 50 various agents that are per vertical technology stack, right? So you might ask, hey, but why are all these incumbent vendors not simply becoming an AI first platform? Well, simply because you cannot retrofit AI in an existing technology stack. There's just too much technological debt. So this is the big difference, by the way, between being AI first or bolt-on AI. So if you would like to know if your application is AI native, simply ask yourself this question. Can you switch off AI in your application, and does your application still work? If the answer is yes, then it's not AI native, right? So for instance, if you take ChatGPT and you turn off AI, well, ChatGPT simply won't work anymore. That means that it's actually AI native. So how do you approach this, right, in the right way? Because basically you are faced with a choice. Either you do it horizontal or vertical. So vertical means having AI agents per technology stack, or horizontal, having one AI agent that can approach and have a conversation with your entire IT stack. And like I mentioned, the challenge is that that data that is required is basically stuck across all these departments and tools. So how do you get all the knowledge that you already have towards the intelligence so it can actually start to do work with you for you? So we had to find a way to integrate all that data. And this was an effort, and correct me if I'm wrong, Satya, I believe this cost us about 3 years to build an architecture, right, that could allow us to bring that knowledge towards the intelligence so it can do work for you.
Actually, yes. Because when Sunil started this presentation, one of the things that I wanted to mention is we are 5 years into business. But when I say business, we spent the first 3.5 years in stealth mode where we just built the product. We never went go to market, right? And I think in the last 1 year we have been in the market, but that's the amount of time that we would need in order to build something scalable with AI like this. And you would see this moving forward.
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice segue, Satya, because it's not only that you need to be able to capture all that information that you already have in all these various data silos and applications. It's very important that you also can capture not only unstructured data, but also structured data, right? Unstructured data, that's fairly easy, right? I mean, that's data that's in plain text, that's tucked away in Google Docs and OneDrives and et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at structured data that's actually in applications, these have dependencies. These have drop-down menus as well, right? A whole bunch of connections going on that you should not lose that context. Right now, DevRev is the only platform available that can interpret both structured and unstructured data. So let
And
me, yeah,
just to add
go
to
ahead.
it, Sunil, sorry, and like Sunil mentioned, absolutely we are context aware, but we are not just context aware, we are permission aware as well, because you have a lot of permissions across these different tools for your different sets of employees, and we make sure that we bring them. And that's the first thing that we built as well. Yes.
Yeah, that's a really great point, Satya. Thanks for pointing that out, right? Things like, for instance, if you have role-based access control already pre-configured in certain applications, we should be able to interpret that and basically bring that into our platform as well, right? Without any manual configurations. That's a really good point. Yeah. So let me talk to you a little bit about the architecture before we actually go into a part where Satya can actually show you DevRev in action as well. So the first thing that we had to figure out was how do we connect with all these data silos that you have throughout your organization? So for this purpose, we built a technology that we call AirSync. What AirSync actually does, it has native integrations with your existing technology stack. So your applications, your structured and unstructured data silos, and it does so bidirectionally. So you can actually do two things, because now that you have a capability that connects you to all the knowledge that you have in your organization, you need to have an architecture that allows you to feed that knowledge to the intelligence. And this is where we come up with computer's memory. Computer's memory is based off of a knowledge graph. A knowledge graph is really important when you are working in the space of AI, because a knowledge graph is an architecture that has all the layers, the context, the depth that AI can understand based off of the knowledge that you feed it. So you can either transfer the information into the knowledge graph, but you can also just simply index it, right, without having to do any data transfer, as long as you know exactly where the data resides. So this is why it becomes super important that the synchronization goes both ways, right? It's a bidirectional sync. So if you change anything in the original data silo, it changes in the knowledge graph. If you change it in the knowledge graph, it changes back in the original application as well. So nothing gets lost in translation. So once you get this right, you actually then get a couple of foundational AI services. And these are split up in three categories. I'll start with the first one, which is what we call enterprise search. Search is basically, imagine having a chat GPT on your own company data. So this means that if anybody needs to do work, they can simply prompt or describe a desired outcome, and the machine will automatically fetch the information that is required to be able to do that work. And like Satya mentioned before, as we are permission aware, you will only get the information that you are actually allowed to see, right? You won't be able to get information that you're not allowed to see, obviously. But what's really important here is that two things happen. One, you get that information super fast. Instead of spending, like we previously mentioned, 25% of your time trying to find information, you will get it now within a couple of seconds. But you also get it with super high accuracy as well, meaning that it will immediately impact the output as well in terms of accuracy. The second part, what you can do is you can automate routine work. So if you look at work, work by itself has a very special characteristic, right? Satya, it always has a beginning and an end. In between, you have various stages, and every stage has a workflow, right? But the thing is that if you look at those workflows and dissect them, you see that a lot of workflows have really mundane, repetitive tasks. So how about if we outsource those mundane and repetitive tasks to an AI agent? And you can have your talented people focus their talent on the more difficult and challenging tasks, right? So again, you get a ton of operational efficiencies. And lastly, it's also acting and providing insights. You need to be able to run analysis, run reports, get a dashboard or a 360 view of any given situation. Typically, organizations would have third-party tools, like, for instance, Power BI, or maybe even tools like Tableau. You don't need that anymore, right? Because you now have access to your entire company's knowledge, your company's truth. And through a simple prompt or a conversation with the computer, you can get those dashboards and reports within a couple of minutes. So what does that mean eventually, right? What does it all lead to? Well, simply this means that within any organization, department, or team, or maybe even every individual, will have a virtual coworker that never needs to sleep, never gets hungry, never gets cranky even, but is always there to help you out with your day-to-day tasks, meaning that you will have a conversational interface and you would literally have a conversation with your IT stack and say, hey, I need to get this job done today. Can you help me out? And this agent will be there and will provide the information that you need, will do the tasks actually on your behalf to be able to do your work as well.
Like a SQL server running on your phone or your system. Yeah.
Exactly. That's a really nice analogy, Satya. And Satya, this is if you think about it, it's quite mind-boggling, right? I mean, depending on the age of the audience, you might remember a time of series that we were looking at, like Star Trek, or maybe the Jetsons, Knight Rider, Iron Man even, right? And what did they all have in common? You always had this human being that was having a conversation with a machine, and the machine would actually understand what the human wanted and can then actually, put it into action.
Yeah.
And this was science fiction, and we are literally at that day and age. We can do this today. Right?
It's reality now. Yes.
Exactly. So, just a couple of key takeaways and ethos before we hand it over to Satya and he can actually show you the DevRev platform and the agents at work. So if you are embarking on this AI journey, really make sure that AI native is going to be part of your decision tree, right? AI native is the way to go. Just make sure that you don't have this enormous sprawl of AI agents spread across all your multiple applications, because that only means that you're moving your challenges from one place to the other. Instead of having to manage multiple applications, you will then all of a sudden have to manage multiple agents. And that's exactly where you do not want to end up, right? The second part is, and this is a design ethos. How do you break down silos? Like I mentioned, SaaS 1.0 really helped us a lot, but all the information now also got tucked away in different data silos. So how do you make sure that these invisible barriers of departments, basically that you can break these down? And then the approach should be horizontal, right? Bring back team intelligence. Let's not move the complication from multiple SaaS applications towards multiple agents. Again, let's have one agent that can basically allow you to have a conversation with your entire IT stack. And lastly, most importantly, how do you make the customer part of your team, right? You're getting so much input and feedback on your services and on your products. How do you capture all of that information and make it part of your decision tree? So I'll leave it at this and I'll hand it over to Satya. And I just want to mention one thing, Satya, as you take over the screen. We are having our big flagship event, the Leadership Circle, coming up in London, where you are, Satya, on November 20th. We will send you all an invitation. You're most welcome to join in because our founders will be there as well, and we will take you through this entire AI journey, and you can literally see DevRev at play in London. And if you, by any chance, are heading towards Barcelona for the Gartner IT Symposium, then you will see a lot of DevRev goodness there. We have our booth there. We are delivering a couple of keynote sessions as well. We're doing a roundtable session as well. So definitely come look for us when you are in Barcelona.
Yeah, and you would get to meet the brightest minds in AI across. So everybody is welcome. We're waiting forward for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, Satya, I'll have you take over the screen now.
Perfect. Uh, Thank you, Sunil. So before we get started, let me introduce you to Computer. So I'm going to talk about a specific company here, like a fictitious company, Zootech. So Zootech is a company which specializes in monitoring animal health enclosure and enclosure conditions using a distributed sensor network, right? And this, let's say, Zootech uses DevRev, right? And why Zootech chose DevRev? Like any other companies, Zootech you used traditional systems like Salesforce. They use Salesforce for CRM, Freshdesk or Zendesk for their support, personas, and they use Jira for the product teams, GitHub for the product teams, and specifically, sales or HR, they might use a different system. Engineering might use a different system, right? To again, like Sunil mentioned, this absolutely gets their day-to-day work done. I'm not going to deny that, but let's say if they want, I've had this in my previous organization as well, right? When I wanted to maybe talk to a specific customer of mine, right? I used to go to my CRM to get my customer information. I need to go to my support tools to get what are the support tickets. I need to go to Jira to understand if there's any product commits that's been given, right? And like, I spent probably a couple of hours in getting this done, and I'm sure everybody has been in this place. Maybe I need to connect with a lot of people to get all this information. Just like we mentioned, time is equal to money, right? So in order to make sure that we get this in your fingertips, you can meet Computer here. So this we are going to talk about the groundwork here, where we used AirSync to bring all of the information into DevRev, right? To make it as a digital twin. And now I can just go ahead and say, if I need to probably talk to a customer of mine, I need to make sure that I get all the information about this particular customer. I can say, can you give me all the information about my customer artist? I'm sorry. You give me all the information about Artis. So Artis is one of the biggest zoos in Netherlands, right? And they use ZooTech. So now what it does is it's not keeping you in the dark as well. The agent is actually looking into a couple of information, and it's showing you what kind of information that it's actually looking into, right? So it's fetching all the account details. It's giving you prior product indicators that it's going to look into. It's also looking into the key stakeholders and suggested outcomes, right? So it's going through a plethora of systems to go ahead and get you that information, right? And while this is coming up, right, there's you know eventually you would go ahead and spend a lot of hours in getting this information, right? But now you can get this all in a jiffy. So let me do that.
And by the way, Satya, if I can just mention something, right? It looks super simple, right? Because you're literally just asking the question. But what I really like is that the computer actually shows you
Mhm.
exactly the reasoning, you know,
Yeah.
like a human being would do, right? If you would have a physical coworker, this is exactly what they would do, right? They would look at certain data sources, they would reach out to colleagues, they would, apply that same reasoning to get to the outcome. And to see actually that a computer is doing this is actually quite mind-boggling.
Yeah, and not just this, right? Let's say it's not just with a sales persona. It can be with a support persona. It can be with HR personas. So let's say I take off my sales persona hat and I put my support persona hat here. And Computer not just surfaces on a desktop app, but it can be on the product as well. So let's say if I want to probably ask you know. like a HR question. I would say, hey, I want to explore Dubai, right? And I'm asking, do we support any leave policies here? And as soon as I do this, what it does is it goes through, information with regards to what kind of leave policies that Zootech offers, right? And it's going to give me information about Zootech's leave policies. And this could be, in a different system, maybe Confluence. And the best part is not just gives me my leave policy, but it also gives me the source from which it has brought this information from. It gives me a leave policy here. It's giving me the source that it came from, and it's going to be Confluence here. So now I can see the Confluence information right from this particular place. And the best part is it's giving me an option about, if I want to proceed to apply for a leave. I would just say yes. If I want to proceed to apply for a leave, I can just say yes. And now it's going to go ahead and, get my leave updated, and it's asking me for a start date. Maybe I'll say Jan 10th, 2026 to maybe October 10th, 2026. Let's say I'm taking unpaid sabbatical leave here. And if I go ahead and say this, it's going to go ahead and book my sabbatical leave automatically for me. So it's not just information retrieval, which is important, but it does actions as well. And now you can look into the tickets data. And if you can look into the tickets data, my sabbatical leave request has already been here from Jan 10th to October 10th. So, and it's waiting for approval. So it does actions as well, right? And one of the other things, like I mentioned about getting a leave done using a HR persona here. Now I want to probably use another persona here. Let's say the product and engineering teams, right? That forms, I think those teams juggle between a lot of systems, right? They might get into GitHub, they might get into support tickets, they might get into Freshdesk, Zendesk, Jira, whatnot, right? So to make their lives easier, right, I'm just going to ask a question here from a support like an engineering perspective. So let's say I would ask, let's say if there is a lot of issues coming up with mobile app, right? And I wanted to know what's the root cause analysis for this, what has been done. So I would say users are complaining about mobile app is not working. Can you give me all the details? So now what it does is it's going to look into the different support requests that's been raised and in the last 2 months, and it's going to give me the issues identified. And the best part is this is from a completely different system because we talked about Confluence that brought in the HR policy, but now this brings the issue details, the possible explanation, and the next steps, and that's from Jira. So you click on this and it's going to, take you to the Jira. And before I take you to the Jira part, you can see it's not just Jira. It gives you all the information about GitHub as well. What code has been run. And if I need to probably click on this and, it's going to take me to GitHub. And if I probably go ahead and click on the external record here, it's going to take me to Jira. So it connects to a lot of systems, gives you context, brings all of this information into one place, right? Without juggling between multiple screens, right? So now we looked into a HR, we looked into an employee, we looked into the product and engineering teams, maybe another sales you know uh, persona use case here, right? Because we just don't live on new business, right? We live on nurturing the customers, getting renewals, and that parts that is I call this as a twin engine of a company, right? You have two engines. One is a new business engine and one is an expansion engine, right? Both has to function in order for the flight to actually go or probably perform it to the best of its abilities. So now, let's say if I talk about a renewal here, and if I need to probably click on a specific ticket here, if I go to tickets, and so I see there's a process of installing a new line cage, right? And there's some issues going on from here, and I would like to understand, what is the issue here, right? So I would probably go ahead and ask, can you check the plan details of, let's say, I'm giving the ticket number 170 and see if there is any issues here. So now what it does is it not just goes through the ticket. Maybe I should give you the right ticket number. Uh, 1 second.
By the way, Satya, I'm looking at this, and this is I mean, a massive time saver, right? Can you imagine if an individual had to do this and scatter through all that information, all these various tools, call people to see if, hey, is this the latest information? Do you have something else that I need to know? I
Mhm.
mean, you can easily spend half a day on this, right? And now you
Easy.
have this virtual coworker that basically does it in a couple of minutes.
Absolutely.
Bizarre.
And and you can also see when I asked information about artists, this is the surface that we use a desktop app, and you can have this on the mobile app as well. It gives you information about the company, it gives you prior product indicators, and this all comes from Salesforce, right? Key stakeholder engagements, recent news about the company when it searches the internet if you want to, and it gives you the recent news, the summary of open and closed tickets, and the best part is you can see the source here as well. Freshdesk is one of the source that we use for support ticketing system. And so the idea here is to make sure that you don't spend a lot of time in getting the information that you would need. That's the first part. So when you do this, obviously your employee productivity goes up. And when your employee productivity goes up, your customer experience, you spend time on the right so we call ourselves DevRev. One of the reasons we call ourselves DevRev is Dev is for developers and Rev is for revenue, which is customers, right? So customers form an integral part, right? So the less time you spend on mundane activities and tasks, the more time you get to spend with your customers, which improves customer experience, which improves the brand, which improves the revenue. So it's a chain ripple effect, I would say, which is going to which is going to be for good, obviously. So the time saving part is a major thing here. And like Sunil mentioned, having different systems, is something that we are moving into a phase where, it's legacy systems and AI native systems. And, moving out of legacy systems is something that a lot of companies can't do because maybe you can't move out of Salesforce, you can't move out of, Zendesk, you can't move out of, your tools that you use because you've been using that for a long time. That's you know, uh, a lot of things on change management, right? What if an AI teammate could actually know all of this information and provide you with rich context and all the information at one place? That makes your life super easy.
Yeah, exactly. Satya, looking at this, it actually reminds me of a conversation that I was having with a customer. This was a couple of days ago before the weekend. And this was head of product engineering. And if you don't mind, I just want to share this because I was just completely blown away when he showed me a recording. So
Mhm.
basically, what he told me was, listen, every time I release a new product or I do an update or a new release, after 6 to 8 weeks, I would like to know what the impact was for the company. So
Yeah,
typically, he would reach out to multiple department heads. In his case, it were six different department heads, asking
yeah.
them, "Hey, can you gather data and show me what the impact was?"
Hmm.
So after a couple of weeks, that data was gathered. All these department heads then bring that data to a BI department that then has to correlate everything, do the number crunching, and then after 6 weeks, he would have a report that was already outdated. But he
Yeah,
said, this is the most effective way to do it for me today. But I thought, you know what? Let me ask computer.
yeah,
So he literally asked computer, listen, we had this release. What was the impact? Super
yeah,
simple question, but you know that the process behind it is very complex to be able to give a proper answer.
yeah,
So computer, and he actually did it twice, by the way, because the second time he redid it and he made a recording because he wanted to show it.
yeah,
So And the recording, basically, this is what happened, right? He says, hey, computer, tell me, what was the impact of this release? Computer comes back, hey, can you confirm that it was this release? Yes, it was. Great. Okay, this release happened on this date. We saw an immediate uptake in support tickets due to the release. So I did a root cause analysis on all those support tickets, and I could bring it back to 2 root causes. I identified the root causes. I packaged the root causes with a summary. I sent it over to level 3 support, to engineering, asking to proactively engineer away these things in the new release. I also accompanied it with a business justification for a CFO, just in case there was a financial approval required for the sprint. It got approved. The sprint was launched. This is when we corrected everything in the release. We saw the ticket volume go down. We saw customer satisfaction rate go up. And by the way, we saw new opportunities being created within these existing accounts and within these new accounts. And he got that in 3 minutes. And
Wow.
and that was like, and it was the first time that I was seeing this, right? Because, this is really testing the limits of what can a virtual coworker actually do? What questions can you ask if you can have a conversation literally with your
Yeah.
entire IT stack? It's
Yeah.
bizarre.
And comparing 6 months to 3 minutes, that's
Well,
a wow.
6 weeks, but okay, still.
6 weeks, yes. 6 weeks
Still,
to
right.
wow. That's a
Yeah.
big thing. So yes, like you said,
So
it's bizarre, right? Having, you just like talking to a WhatsApp and a friend, you just have a conversational chat with your tech stack. That's mind-boggling. Yes.
yeah, exactly. And by the way, Satya, I know that we're, at the top of the hour, and I just want to make sure that if there are still people hanging on and if they have questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box. And yeah, we can take any of your questions, right? So I see that we have a question here from, let's see, it's from Stalia. So I can read it out loud. So I have a question here. I see most companies use separate apps like Bamboo HR for managing leave. Can computer integrate with such apps so employees can raise leave requests directly there instead of creating a ticket? Well, I'll give you the shorter answer, and Satya can give you the longer answer. So the short answer is yes, you can. Satya, I'll leave the longer answer to you.
Yes. So I think that's one of the reasons why we designed AirSync, right? So AirSync is a system which can actually bring in all the information, but it also has an ability to have a two-way sync. So it not just brings the information to create a digital twin, but it does actions as well. So instead of creating a ticket in DevRev, you can go ahead and create a ticket in Bamboo HR as well. So not just Bamboo HR, but to any system as well. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. So we are going to close the webinar right now. We went over a little bit. I just want to mention one thing. Well, actually, two things. One, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us anytime. You can also, connect with us on LinkedIn if that's a little bit more convenient for you. And the second, I mentioned we're having a couple of flagship events. We are having our leadership circle in London on November 20th. So if you have the possibility to join in, feel free to register. We'll send you a link afterwards. And if you're heading to Barcelona for Gartner IT Symposium, definitely drop by our booth, and we're looking very much forward to meeting you there. So everybody, thank you so much for spending quality time with us today. And hopefully we'll connect again soon. Well, for now, have a nice day.
Thank you,
Bye,
guys.
everyone.